to the GNU Toolchain Steering Committee, whoever, stewards, any terminology, Q&A. So thank you very much for everybody. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the conference this year. It's been really fun, lots of great conversations, lots of great progress, both in the toolchain itself and the conversations with the community. I want to give just a little bit of an overview of what's going on. First, thank you everybody to the GNU Cauldron leaders here. We want to thank the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Porto and Professor João Cardoso for hosting this. And thanks very much for the program committee, especially the yeoman work by Carlos O'Donnell and by Cupertino for making this really, and Jose for an exceptional event here at the University in Porto here, and all of the organization and transitioning to a great new formal system, CIC, everything. Any comment more, Carlos?
I want to thank the organizing committee. I think we had like 600 votes, because as we receive all of your talks, the organizing committee is reviewing them, voting on them, talking to the individual talk submitters, asking questions, clarifying, so that we have some of the best talks. And I think it showed, it was awesome to have that feedback, I think, from the OC, and I'm looking forward to doing it next year.
So, thanks very much for all of that. Again, thank you very much thank you to the catering, thank you to the video production team here, thanks for everybody making this a really great progress. The live streaming, this has been a really exceptionally smooth, and great production. So thank you for that. I want to thank the Cauldron sponsors. We have AdaCore, AMD, ARM, Synopsys, also pre-talk and pre-text for the event organizing system software. So thank you very much for everybody providing that. We greatly appreciate the ability to put on, and we need the support of the sponsors to be able to fund the events that we have here, that combined with the tickets, but we need sponsorship to be able to put on this type of event. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to the Google Summer of Code students who were able to attend here. And thanks to myself and to Martin for sponsoring being able to do the events for the Google Summer of Code. Just a little update. This is, in some ways, may or may not match Jeremy's analysis, but we've had, as usual, great progress in all of the projects for GCC commits, GLIBC, Binutils. So thank you to all of the developers. Thank you to all of the maintainers. Thank you to all the release managers. Thank you to all the companies who support the developers. So thank you very much for making this a vibrant and successful community. And thank you to the various people who help with the publicity for this, the Red Hat mandated blog. I know.
It's not anymore.
It's not, okay. Oh, never mind. Okay, forget the Red Hat. I think everybody else is separate.
No, it's optional now.
Excellent. And you have our wonderful panel. People want to introduce themselves.
We're going to go right, left,
Hi,
right.
I'm Maxim. This is my first time on the panel. I'm here with my GLIBC hat on, even though I also have lots of interest in GCC, Binutils, and GDB projects.
So, hi, I'm Nick Clifton. I'm another ringer. I'm not actually on the steering committee at all. I'm the Binutils guy. So when Binutils things go wrong, it's my fault.
But it was a GNU Toolchain. David
Well,
expanded.
it's
GNU
oh,
Toolchain.
it's an inclusive title now.
It's a purposeful expansion.
Oh, I feel honored.
You can identify as a member.
Yeah, I can.
Jeff Law, I've been doing this since we were doing them in Ottawa.
Yeah.
So a while. I love to hack GCC. I've been doing it my whole career, and ultimately I just want to see these projects continue to thrive. That is really my goal. Not just GCC, but Binutils, GDB, GLIBC. You know, my company depends on this stuff, and I just enjoy doing the work. So, yeah, just want to make a successful, happy community.
Carlos O'Donnell, and I've got as Maxim, I've got my GLIBC hat on, so I'm the upstream GLIBC GNU project maintainer. I remember starting working on GLIBC, doing PA risk hacking in university. You remember that? But what's funny is that HP would pay for me to come visit GCC Summit. So HP would say, we're having this thing called GCC Summit. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I use GCC. Can I come to the summit? And they said, sure. And so they would pay. And it was the most fun. But I remember going to the first summit, and you had long hair.
I did.
Really long hair. So, yeah.
Now I got a big bald spot.
Ramana.
Hi, I'm Ramana Radhakrishnan. I'm on the GCC steering committee. I've been doing GNU Toolchain work since 2002, but nowadays mostly focused on GCC. Very interested in how the projects thrive and move forward. I started in GNU Toolchain in 2002, sitting in India in a startup that had no compiler engineers. And from there, to get to Ottawa, meet the people. A lot of the people we used to just exchange notes on Bugzilla or emails. To meet everybody, put names to faces was fantastic, and I hope this sort of tradition at Cauldron continues for a long time, especially for new developers.
And for those who don't know, my name is Dave Nettleson. I'm on the GCC steering committee, a long time, one of the initial members of it.
Jason Merrill, GCC steering committee. I started messing with the GNU development tools around the release of GCC 2.0 and haven't noticeably stopped since.
Toon Moene. I started using G77 around October 1992 because in meteorology we need Fortran compilers, and that's why I stick around. And now, but now I'm retired as a meteorologist, so perhaps I should retire from this committee too.
Hi, I'm Pedro Alves. I've been working on the toolchain since around 2006, I think. Ended up focusing on GDB. I started out as a hobby. I really enjoyed just the hacking culture and contributing to this project and getting, engaging with these phenomenal people. And somehow I ended up working on this professionally and just became my professional life. And somehow it led me to being here today, representing the GDB tools, project, and looking forward to engage with you all. Hi.
So just another announcement is that right after this, we're all going to go take the group photo, but until then, it's now your meeting. What do you want to talk about?
Questions. We're done.
Yeah.
No questions.
This has got to be a first. There's not a question like
I'll start with these ones.
Get started.
Right. If you had a hypothetical workflow that allowed people to post a pull request on some forge, and that workflow allowed them to post the patches on the mailing list the proper way, link back to the mailing list, what would it take for a maintainer's approval on the forge to be considered okay for pushing on master?
I guess that's heading
Maxim. Maxim.
Oh, Maxim, good.
In my opinion, this should be just the maintainer's name. So if the person approving patch on Forge has the same name and there is no evidence, well, and we are reasonably sure that that's the same Forge ID, then that's it.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. If it's the same person that normally would approve via an email process, if they approve on Forge, you're good to go. And I would say that I've wanted something like this for a long time. I think the way we do patches is difficult. But in the end, I think, you know, guys like Richie, myself, we all need to buy into the concept. And I'll go wherever the community goes, because I ultimately, again, it's about building a community that works.
I would say you don't need to buy into the concept, and I'd even say Richie doesn't need to buy into the concept, but someone, particularly if you are like federating teams or other groups of people, and they can make distinct decisions, but you have one person who's saying, yeah, I'm approving that block of MRs or PRs. If they're a global maintainer, I don't see why they can't shepherd from one process to the other and put them in place. I think that the Forge question is about building bridges between like developers who have come and said, I don't know what a patch is. I don't submit patches. I don't even generate patches. I don't even know how to send them via email. And if we don't have those bridges, we can't bring them in. And in fact, I've talked to Richie, and I agree with Richie to some degree, email-based review, editing, and discussion is a different fluid process to Forge-based like MRs. And even Forge-based MRs are not all unique. You can have commit-based reviews, branch-based reviews. You can have totally different styles. We need to find a way to bridge those developers into our repositories or our repos. And I think that requires a kind of federated model, and that federated model is supported actually by DCO, because then you can roll up the contributions and then support people growing across that chain of tools.
But is that not okay, that's fine, but
Ask a question.
some of us have been actually guinea pigging on the Forge for the last year, as we actually said we will do in the last Caltron. So why not asking that people? I don't know, I think that some people working in the C++ front end has been using the Forge. Sure. And actually recently I have seen like some non-test reviews, but I don't know if they are here.
So
I think not the C++ front end, but mostly libstd C++.
Well,
And
yeah, sorry, the C++ runtime, but.
I think Matic as well as in China.
yeah.
Yeah, on the reflection branch.
And how is it working?
He seems to like it. So, and Jonathan as well.
So, but that's the thing.
Because it forces you to do the first pushes every time something changes, and you need to rebase, and then.
You don't have to like
yeah,
it.
I'm managed, but yeah, I prefer.
For me, it's the magic button. For me, it's the magic button that, you know, I mean, you review in the mailing list, and then you go there to the whatever pull request, and you do like rebase and push, right? Back. And then that's nice. That's, you know, it saves time.
Yeah, I mean, rebase and push, I've used on Forges, it works. Oh, sorry, you know, that rebase and push, I use it every day. It works.
Also on this discussion, there are workflows that Forge-based, there are processes that we use that Forge-based workflows do not support well. One such example is multi-patch submissions, when you have a patch series of 20 or 30 patches. And we may want to consider that for junior developers who come in with just a single patch, it will be convenient for them to use a Forge model. But if you want to do something more complicated, maybe we do want to continue supporting the current approach as well.
Would this process remove because we have this idea of obvious patches, i.e., you know, documentation that's just got typos or whatever, and we don't need approval? Would we have to get rid of that with this whole merge request stuff?
No.
Oh, I mean,
No.
Then who's the approver on the merge request?
And I think we should actually be expanding those policies.
So that if if we start removing those kinds of things, that's a regression in our process. We can't have that. So if you need to send that, then send it on the mailing list and get it done. Or have an option.
I think his point is,
Microphone, microphone.
can you do this using a forge rather than email?
That's
can,
what I'm-
can you get
if we went to the
self-approved,
forge thing.
obvious patches in a
There is
forge?
a committer file. I think it comes down to the question of how do you build the bridge between the forge authentication and our SSH-based authentication for pushes. If there is a way to identify this as the same person, then I don't see why we should not extend that policy over there.
But
Someone who can
doesn't the forge
self-approve and
require
push.
a maintainer of the area that you want to push a patch for.
We're,
To
this is
approve it.
We're
to
into
go.
the weeds, though, right? Like, we just approve. We'll get that process done, and we can set it up.
Yeah.
The broader question I think Claudio's raising is about, can we do that? And I think the answer is, yeah. Is the lib standard C++ team using it today successfully? That's great. Does Jakob not like it? That's okay. But like Jonathan is working on those patches. He is gathering a team, he's designing a workflow, he's doing things that work for them. And to some degree, I think it's okay to have that kind of federated model where sub-teams might work differently than other teams, but someone does have to shepherd the patches in place. And so I think Jonathan is looking at those and approving them, and eventually they'll just merge into trunk, right?
So just some quick remarks. With regard to the obvious thing, my reading of it is that the issue relates to whether we put the canonical Git repo in Forge. So if we're hosting it independently, then you're pushing as normal. If you're doing it via the Forge, and if we gate it on approval, you would need someone else. So it's this idea of where you host the Git repo and how you handle access control for that. If you stick with it as it is, you can push anyway. If you let the Forge handle it, you may have issues with interactions between how do you specify where you can self-approve.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big thing. I just wanted to point out that where you have it matters.
Go, Richie. I think Richie's been waiting.
Quickly, so LLVM still has, they still do not, they don't require pull requests for everything right now. They're talking about it, but what I'm saying is they have a model where they do pull request and, you know, people commit directly still.
So when you do a pull request and there's a review on the Forge, is that review process visible on the mailing list? Because like when I check out why did we change this, I'm doing Git history and I'm searching mailing list because there are interesting information on the patches. Are all reviews visible in one place?
I think, Richie, that is a fantastic comment because
I can give a very easy answer to that. It is very easy to say if a reviewer says, looks good to me, and is one of the qualified reviewers, at that point the pull request stops there. A summary of what was said in there gets posted in the mailing list, and you've got everything in one place if you want to.
yeah, and I think that's all Richie's looking for. Is there a place where we can do archaeology? Because I think Richie, myself, do that constantly.
So I would also say that commit message can be large, can contain links to public inbox, can have detailed descriptions of why that change is going, and it's not just an auto-generated change log in the commit message.
We move past
Yes,
just that.
yeah.
bare bones
I'm just saying that if we keep going down the path of really detailed change logs, commit messages, I do think that's valuable. Yeah.
So what is often valuable is like seeing how the change evolved, because you consider why didn't they do that way, and you see there was a first version, there were comments, they rejected that idea. So is the whole process of how a merge request develops, like it's possibly thrown away and redone. I'm not sure how you do that on the Forge, like revisit the patch. Is that visible? I want to be able to search that easily.
I wonder if that is solved if there is a link back to the original Forge merge request in the Git commit. And we have a policy of not deleting any of the merge requests or the original branches in the Forge instance, if the two are separate. these things can be solved with respect to the mechanics and the requirements we need. I think these are good points to consider. The larger question that we have to decide as a community, in my opinion, is are we willing to move to that kind of the flow? And if we are willing, then I think we can arrange on a process that will make it work.
So we should first decide whether we want to enable that, not move to it.
Right.
Enable,
So
yeah,
Richie's
yeah.
comment was, do we want to enable it or do we want to move it?
Okay,
I also
sorry.
want to make, I mean, we want to necessarily time box this or decide if we want to, we aren't going to solve this entire problem here in this meeting, or we can.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure if there are any other issues, we can stay on this topic, or we can open other questions.
There's also a session later
Yeah.
on this topic,
Yeah.
if anyone
Did
is
we-
interested.
I think
Gomati
Mike.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
How do decisions get made? Because it's very opaque to me in any GNU Tools community. It may be about process, it could be about something else. How do decisions get made?
By group fighting.
UFC.
Who are the people who are fighting?
Well, it depends on the decision.
Depends on the topic.
Because, I mean, there's, the steering committee is meant to decide policy questions that we've been delegated authority by the GNU project to lead this. But for decisions that aren't, I mean, it's not just a matter of whether it's decisive or not, but that aren't policy, it is up to the community and the community to decide, how it wants to solve that problem. And does not necessarily need to be consensus.
All right, so you've just opened the can of worms.
Yes.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
So I've had conversations with a number of folks, particularly over the last few days, but I think, David, you and I have had a few via email in the last few months. But for 25 plus years, we've been a purely political group, at least on the GCC side. We deal with the politics of certain policies. Is it time to reimagine what the GCC Steering Committee's job is? Not saying that our traditional role goes away. You carve that off and say that is still something we have to do. But is it time for a change? Because if you look at when we put the committee together, back in the 90s, we had representation from the C++ community as users, not just as developers. We had Tone representing the Fortran user community. We had Joe Buck and others. And I think some folks, and myself included, would say we've kind of lost some of that. And like, for example, we don't have distro representation. We don't have representation.
We have, well,
So-
Gerald didn't.
Who?
Jerry didn't resign.
All right. My point is it time to reimagine what this group does? Open question.
Well, but I will also say that we had an initial charter, which I'm not
Yes.
sure if you've reread that charter recently.
Not recently.
And that we, amongst the committee, or at least more recent members of the committee who don't know the charter, have argued against the role that the charter says we have.
Okay.
So Gomati's question still stands, which
does.
is how do we make decisions? So in truth, some of the GNU project maintainers can make decisions independently if we believe they are in the best interest of the community and the best interest of the project. So I think, number one, you can advocate for everybody here on the panel. You can go to one person and say, I think this decision needs to get made, this is going to be beneficial for us, and then we can just make it. So I think the for example is, in the GLIBC community, we didn't have policy until we started writing it down, and I started writing it down and trying to drive direction for policy, trying to drive use of reviewed by tags, to thank the reviewers, to collect how many people are doing review, have metrics for review, things like that, because the community was like, we need more reviewers. Well, what are we doing to get more reviewers? We have to record the reviews, because then we have data, and then we can loop back and say, I don't have enough reviewers, and then I can drive a conversation with people who are doing reviews to say, hey, can you scale up your reviews? No, you can't. Okay, can we find other people to do reviews then? The Forge question is more complicated because it impacts way more of us. And ultimately, if we want to make a complex decision, I think we need to chop it up into smaller blocks and get agreement and make process on the smaller blocks, which is kind of what we're doing today in that there's an experimental Forge active, and the libstandard C++ team is using it, and they're going to be able to give the community feedback on how did that go. And although Jakob doesn't like the Forge, you're eminently practical, that you're admitting Jonathan and Merrick and Patrick are doing really good work on the Forge, and they're managing to review their own code, and they're actually sharing that code with other external communities. And the other external communities like that they can go view a Forge and an MR and review the code that way, rather than have to go to a mailing list, because the Forge gives the external community a viewpoint of their dev work and what they're doing, and it's a nice snapshot. Rather than,
if
yeah.
you don't have constant conflicts, then I guess I could just work with it too. It's just about that. I'm currently working on a branch where I have every day 10 different conflicts on 10 different pull requests, and I have to rebase everything all the time, and it's consuming a lot of time, which I
Yeah, but
normally wouldn't.
We're still missing about these questions.
Yeah, how does it get made?
Are we changing the topic now, or?
No, yeah, just change,
Well,
yeah.
I just-
It was a change in topic. Oh, Sudi has a mic, yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it was touched a bit, but I still didn't find the exact difference. So, and I've had discussions with various SA members, and I've had the similar feeling that, yeah, some of the things the maintainers can take things forward in their community. But my question is, do all the maintainers know that they have that influence and power to move that conversation ahead in their community? Are they enabled? Do we have them mention anywhere that these are the things that the maintainers can just move on with it?
I don't think we have that level of detail.
Yes, we do.
I don't think so.
Yes, we do.
I
No. If you look, we now have a GCC steering committee wiki page that actually lists the
Do the
key points from the charter.
Does this audience know? Those
Yeah.
do they know what their
This is the
bounds
announcement.
are?
I think Sudi's right. There is a educational piece where we need to write down more, though we have written a lot down, and we need to just keep telling people, like, this is where it is, this is where it is, this is where it is.
I'd also say, for a lot of maintainers that have been maintaining for a while, let's say not freshly minted maintainers, they've already seen this happen, maybe not with their feature, but they've seen some other maintainer say, look, I've got this feature, and let's talk about it and refine it and then get it in. So you can learn by watching what has been done before. But you're right, it's, at least in Binutils, I know for sure, it's not yet documented. Another thing to fix when I get home.
So I think one point to make is that in open source, changes happen when some people do things and others follow.
Yeah.
Because talk is very cheap. But resources like somebody implementing the Forge and people using it and more people using it, it will eventually enable it because people are just using it. And just talking is very cheap.
Totally agree.
So I have a concrete suggestion.
Mike, please, wait.
Can we please change the way we actually communicate with the GCC steering committee? Because I don't want to offend anyone. I know everyone is doing, what they do in the best of intentions, but it's sort of creepy, I mean, it's like a Ouija, it's like anyone there, then you get contacted. And then from that point on, any further communication is invariably private, which is fine, I guess. But can we make the secret mailing list public?
We did it.
Okay, but
we wrote it,
can we make it the standard, normalized way to contact the steering committee? I mean, the archives...
We did. But if you want...
Why I don't know about that?
Because we're bad at telling people.
That's the problem then.
So
it is, yeah.
I just want to wrap this up. I know we're not going to solve this problem here, but can you take this away at the steering committee as an action?
Can certainly
Put
take
something in there, like, if it is 2 different decision process, that's fine, but just document it somewhere. Every group has a wiki.
I'm going to say 2 things. I just want to make 2 points. This is a community of volunteers. Things get done when people want them done. The currency of exchange here is the contribution, whether that be a review, whether that be an infrastructural change, or whether that be the code that you write. We need to discuss what needs to happen in terms of change in the community. We need to build that consensus, and we need to work through that. expecting that coming to Cauldron once a year, throwing an idea and discussing it here, as Richie says, talk is cheap. We need some people to go back and do that, and sometimes we need people who say they'll do something, hand up included, being guilty of that, to be held accountable to that. So my message here is, every one of you here is empowered to come up with an idea and build that consensus and do that. The steering committee is not the only person in this room, or the global maintainers are not the only people in the room who are going to drive the change in the process.
I love your answer, right? But
That
tell
is
me
my
how
personal-
I can hold you accountable, because I don't know how to hold you accountable.
That is an excellent question. Send me an email, which, if I manage to read it and get it, I'll do something or complain to Jeff or David or someone.
But I think that highlights an issue. How does GLIBC hold us accountable?
That is a very good question.
I think it's.
I can provide.
To me, I think it would, what would move me is if you send an email to the mailing list and saying, to the public mailing list saying, hey, at the Cauldron, you said you would do that last year. A year has passed. What's going on? Has anything progressed? Can I help? And if you do that in public, then people will tend to, okay, I need to act.
A suggestion.
Power of shame.
A suggestion that I could provide is something that I've seen other committees do, and it's create a repository where a pull request provides a template for a decision that people want to have made. If the decision-making process can be done in public, you can comment on the pull request, and the decision gets recorded in a file in that repository. If the decision-making process is fraught with difficulty, I don't know, code of conduct, things like that, you just record the outcome and state sensitive issues, something, but a decision is recorded somewhere, and the people are held accountable for that. Just a suggestion.
Well, I think you've hit on the transparency question. When we can be transparent, we need to be more transparent.
He's got a mic.
But I also, just since there is a concern here about communication, I want to publicly remind people that, one, there now is for GCC a page that describes not just who is a member of the steering committee, but what the policies are, what its scope is, what the active requests are to the steering committee, and also that based on the conversations from a few years ago, we actually now have, I believe it's monthly office hours that we have, or initially, looking for the level of activity, but have a number of steering committee members who attend those office hours, not a steering committee office hour, it's a community office hour, but as a place to have, exactly as was raised in previous iterations of Cauldron, of we don't want to have this just once a year, to have a place for people to be able to raise questions. So that's another place both for questions and for accountability. So if people want to have discussions, there are forums, and please take advantage of those forums, because right now it's not just empty echo chamber, but it's often the same people. So I think there is a little bit of a contrast here between, we want these other things, but and that's why I'm announcing it, there are additional avenues, there are additional places to be able to utilize it, and please utilize that as opposed to just having this session, you aren't doing it, and there actually are other avenues, other places to have conversations for the steering committee, for the release managers, for the maintainers to have more access for the entire GNU Toolchain community, to both, for help with getting through with patches, help with, as people know here, the interactivity of, not necessarily official sprint, but working through, design issues in person, orally, or with this is big blue button, but having this be interactive is very effective as opposed to the coldness of a merge request or an email list. So please utilize the resources that we are adding, and we welcome additional suggestions.
So we are saying that once a month, members of this committee are coming in with their steering committee hat on
No. What we're saying is that what we're saying is that once a month there is an office hour for the GNU Toolchain, of which anybody is allowed to attend, and it's not an official steering committee meeting.
Yeah, I would say, I think Jason and I are every month pretty much routinely on the office hours for the GNU Toolchain and just there to answer
Usually.
questions. Yeah.
There is a problem with it though. I think we need to change. I know it's probably a pain in the ass to do so, but I cannot attend that meeting because it collides with a work meeting invariably. So it would be nice to introduce some sort of variation on the, so.
Elena, can we solve that problem?
No, like, yeah.
I have a more personal problem with that. It's in a time zone or at a time in the day that doesn't work for me, either for work commitment or it's smack bang in the middle of dinner.
Yeah,
I have a life. So there will be, we will have to, so I'm with you. We will have to find other times to do it. And I think I stood up last year and said I'd do something about an Asia time zone one. I should pull my finger out and do something.
And here we come to the accountability question. Anyway, to kind of wrap, at least my only thought on this topic is, this isn't on my calendar, so I don't show up. Period. It's not on my personal calendar. If it's not in my calendar,
You are personally invited
It's not
because
on my calendar.
I managed the invite and I added you to the calendar.
what address did you use? It doesn't show up in my meeting list.
All right.
So maybe you two need to
Go-
sort it out
We
right
have a
after.
problem here.
Right after this, you two can take that action. And
So-
And this is how we address issues. You wanted to understand how decisions are made. This is how decisions
I
are made.
literally do not see this on my calendar, Carlos.
That's okay.
So we gotta fix this.
Yes, Gomathi, may you hold me accountable to make sure we have Jeff and Jeff's right address. Have you changed employers recently?
Not in 3 years. But you can use my personal address. That would probably be better.
One other thing I'd just like to put back is the committee isn't sealed, right? If you think it's not doing something wrong, it's not communicating enough, step up. Come up and join the committee and be the communications officer. Yes, we will try to be better, but you can help us. Okay?
Well, and if you think about, I've got a mic.
Democrat,
If you think about, are there problems we should be solving that you have expertise in, or they're particularly interesting to you? Step up. We will work with you to try and solve them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're signing up for a multi-year commitment to come up here and do this. But you can.
Yeah.
But if there's something that you're passionate about, step in, help solve the problem, and make a better community.
Yeah.
So Ramana said that the members of the community are empowered to kind of come up with the idea and kind of build consensus and get it adopted. And Jeff asked what the steering committee perhaps should be, how it should be evolving beyond just solving political problems and leaving the technical discussions to the community. Maybe, I know GLIBC has the consensus rules, GC doesn't though. So maybe we could write down what consensus means for the GC adopted. Maybe GLIBC, maybe then the steering committee, one of the steering committee's roles would be to kind of be the judge of what consensus has been reached and coach the people who do want to get the consensus, because most people, especially on the junior side, they don't know actually how to build consensus because it's a whole different skill set from technical work. So maybe that's the thing the steering committee should be doing.
I would wholeheartedly agree across the board. And I think we could start with, even if it's not the final form, we could start with what GLIBC has.
Sounds good.
I was just going to say, with regard to transparency, whenever anyone speaks with an SC hat on, do they CC the list? Like, are you all aware of when someone else speaks with the SC hat on? Because I think that's a useful thing to do, not just for awareness each other, but for archival purposes as well. So we have like, for what we do in Gen2, for all our sort of like administrative bodies, we have like this private mailing list that no one can see the archives for, but we keep. So if we ever need to refer to them, we can. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I'll note is just that it's very odd. I mean, it's unusual to have the leadership body be private. We have regular meetings, we have like a public agenda, and we have a meeting once a month, and everyone can see the meetings. You don't need to do all of those things, but having, say, a meeting every 3 months where there's a public agenda and people can see the discussions, unless there's some specific thing that needs to be discussed in private, is there a reason to not do that? Because I think it should be the default.
I think that there isn't such a meeting generally. I think that I think what's different there is all the decision making right now is being made in the public, and we're having it on the mailing list. And that in truth, like, I don't hold a GLIBC meeting where Alex and Jakob and Maxim and I and Ryan and others all get together and talk, because we're allowing the community to run and have those public things. But you're right that if we do have to have such a discussion,
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have one if there's no decisions to be made.
Well,
but if there is going to be one.
but I mean, there is a difference here in that the steering committee for GCC, which is one of the earliest one, and the entire structure of our community is very different than what has evolved for other communities, whether it be Python, LVM, Rust, anything else. There is not a foundation. I mean, we have the Free Software Foundation, but we don't have a foundation for the project, which leads the, provides, the running the conferences and other sorts of, and helps fund various work within the community. We also don't have a technical steering council or TAC or others that are equivalent. And so
what I'm saying is,
I understand. Let me finish, please. And so most of that work has actually devolved to the community itself and the release managers and others, which have these public conversations. The way that the GCC steering committee is organized is at basically, we don't have regular meetings, we don't have many conversations, because it's when there is a topic that has been raised that we need to address, we formulate and materialize to address that, and then we basically go back away. It's not a matter of a standing committee. I mean, it is a committee that continues to exist, but it's not, we aren't there for creating the strategy, for better or worse.
We were discussing doing more. Yeah. And if you're going to do more, you should have the same standing that other projects do.
I think that the thing that may be missing is when decisions are currently discussed, whether it's community consensus or in GCC steering committee, these are per project. And I think we should be better at involving other toolchain projects in our discussions, even though if it is a GLIBC issue, it's the GLIBC maintainers who are leading the discussion, but it would be helpful to have Binutils and GDB and GCC members copied on that discussion as well, so that we don't have 4 different policies for 4 different projects.
Like to take that one from Sam. In today's structure, I don't think we have a need for a meeting. If in tomorrow's structure, we get to the point where the steering committee, by consensus or otherwise, finds a way of reimagining our role, and there is a need for such a process, then I don't think any of us will shirk away from setting that process up. I think we all need lesser meetings, but let us put that in on the basis of the need rather than just put the structure in. That would be my point.
Would you say it's fair to say that right now, issues that come in front of the GCC steering committee, and I'm being very specific here, they do not, at this time, there's not enough of them to have a meeting, and when an issue comes up, it is typically something we do end up discussing in private.
We do end up discussing in private, and we do manage to seem to discuss that pretty effectively over email at the moment.
And if we reimagine this committee and its roles and responsibilities, I would fully expect that some of those roles and responsibilities would be entirely public.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So right now, we're doing what is necessary for our current scope. But I believe the scope needs to change. And as that changes, certain things will have to happen.
Yeah.
So I want to add to that. So I am a little bit confused that we are talking about expanding the role of the existing steering committee.
I'm not sure it's the existing.
Right. So the point is, it doesn't have to be. Maybe we are talking about having people that help the community doing some things, but does that have to be the steering committee? I mean, the steering committee is something like God-given upon us by the FSF, by the chief GNUs, right? So, and that's kind of a thing is a bad thing that sticks in my mind. So I think we should rather start in kind of defining ourselves as a community, maybe documenting and writing it down, how we do things, how we want to do things, and what do we think is lacking in structure, and see who wants to fit in roles in that structure. So I don't want to like form this thing to make it fit the steering committee, because that's totally too narrow.
Agree. And even in the current role, people in sort of leadership or maintainership positions, one question that I have is, can you look to champion a good idea through in the community and think about it? Doesn't have to fall back to a committee to do that work.
So what strikes me as somewhat odd compared to other projects is that there's no real career progression within the projects, as you get commit access pretty soon, for at least for GCC and GLIBC. You can push your own patches. Then you have right after approval for GCC, but then there's really hard to move on from that, I suppose. And that has also the effect that if you look at when we go back to our companies and we try to justify our position in the community or document our position in the community, it's kind of iffy because there's no well-defined role, and that makes the jobs for managers more difficult, I believe. And I think other projects have found ways to hand out perks in the community for contributions or to document growth within the community, and that helps them to gather more resources they can contribute as well.
I agree completely. And I think that if Maxim and I, the panel that we held, we had a section on growth and roles and responsibilities, because I do think that going from like nothing to all the commit access is like, there are more subtle roles within the community, but because they're poorly defined, it makes the progression track, or it makes the process just more difficult, because you don't know where you're going to go, you don't know how to get there, you don't know who you need as a coach or a mentor, you don't know if you say, well, this subsystem is really maintained by this person, I'm going to try to shadow that person. Is there really shadowing, right? Can you shadow someone? Can you then say, I do want to maintain that subsystem, how can I learn as much from this person? I've said to a couple people that I've talked to people in the Python community, and they have some interesting defined roles where you have direct mentorship, you have directly specified roles where you can move from one role to the other. But I want to echo Richie's comment, which is, if we need that as a community, Florian, you and I can start documenting what we think would be valuable for GLIBC. How do we define a role? How do we define subsystem maintainers? Do we need to? We have some ideal of subsystem maintainership, but could we define something better? And then have other members of the community hold us accountable for writing that down and acting as mentors or acting as support for those roles. So, Vineet.
As a follow-up, I think Richard Earnshaw sent me a question, sorry, because it's just very topical here. He said that there are, specifically for the GCC steering committee, that there are half of the global maintainers listed are either retired or are technically inactive. Is SC considering appointing new global maintainers for GCC?
Hasn't come up, but probably should. Any other opinions on that?
Candidates? Exactly. Nominate.
Yeah. Nominate.
Nominate. Not only are patches welcome, but nominations are welcome. Anyway.
Anybody can. And in fact, it's better if you guys do it. If you wait for me to do it, I lose track of it. And then it doesn't happen. And I don't see any of the folks in here that I have lost through the time, but there are people who have had maintainerships lost because I've gotten too busy. And that's not good.
The comment I have here is, on my memory, there may be 1 or 2 maintainers retiring like in 5 years. So it's a quite rare occasion that I see an email that I am retiring because I'm not going to be working in this area anymore.
It is rare, but I think it's going to become more common.
Why?
You see all the gray hair up here?
Vineet has questions, and we'll keep moving the agenda.
Yeah. So so this is a good segue. You said retirement, and somebody said education. I think a few people before. So I'm a relative newcomer to the community, like GCC community, right? And what I've felt over the years is, if you look at LLVM, for example, it's much easier to learn about LLVM as a newcomer as compared to GCC. So I'm sorry, I'm switching topics. I think we have enough of
That's fine.
steering committee. So a few, like somebody said, talk is cheap, like Digi said, talk is cheap. And Ramana, you said, we should act while. So this year, I'm very happy and pleased. So 2 years ago, Robin and I were discussing this. We were complaining, and I said, yeah, instead of complaining, let's do something about it, right? So we did 2 talks. I'm no expert in my area. I mean, he probably is. But I'm trying my best, right? So we are trying to, so we did some talks, and this is not about, bragging or whatever, right? So thank you this year. This year has been much better in terms of newcomer-friendly talks, right? And it's not just for the cold run. It's like, it's there for posterity, right? So somebody out there can see them. But since we are on the topic, and since we have taken off, I would say, as one of the accountability things, and somebody said, Maxim, you said retirement, right? So, and I fear a lot of you, not seeing you, some of you in not so distant future. So while you are here, it should be kind of forced upon the more expert, experienced people of you to give more newbie-friendly talks, okay? And please, and I'm sorry I'm saying this, don't say that I did this at 4 a.m. in the morning. It's an insult to the person who is there. Somebody flew from halfway or like other part of the globe just to see and attend it. And if there's a half-assed effort to do anything, it's a shame in my opinion, right? So the experienced people should share more, right? I mean, don't wait for idiots like me in a talk like me to say, oh, this is, by the way, this has been there for 20 years. Yeah, I know it's 20 years, but can you please say this on your own? Okay, so not ranting, but please.
Share more knowledge.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And the GCC community in particular needs more of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Point taken.
Yeah. Oh, lots of questions.
So,
where are the mics?
I have the mic.
Sit, yeah.
So,
Sit as a mic.
I wanted to go back to the conversation we had, like 2 points that I wanted to make. One was regarding the career progression, and Carlos, you talked about stronger definition of maintainer, subsystem maintainer roles. So I want to point out that if we do it in the GCC sense, it is going to be a step back for the GLIBC community in the sense that it should not be a gatekeeping role.
Sure.
It should be an expertise role, which is what we have now. Yeah. We have named experts or named developers who are comfortable reviewing certain subsystems. We already have that in the wiki page.
Your comment is then you want a knowledge transfer growth definition for the roles rather than a gatekeeping definition.
Right.
100%. Makes total sense. I don't have the answers to this question. I do think that if we start writing it down, then you'll give input, Florian will give input, other people will give input, and then we'll just define those roles broadly about knowledge. But at the same time, I want commitment from those people that know things to spend time transferring what they know.
Of course.
And
yes.
so if we define the roles and no one steps up to be a mentor to help someone go through the role, I'm going to come back to all of you and say, hold all of you accountable, because Kirill knows stuff, Louis knows stuff, Petro knows stuff, and we do need individual people to sign up to be mentors for other more junior people in the community if the roles get defined and we define a process.
Agreed, 100%. And to the other point about the question about who gets to pick the global maintainer or nominate global maintainers or subsystem maintainers, the answer was you guys. And I feel like that's a non-answer, because you guys is a delegation of responsibility into thin air, which, you know, sometimes lands, but most times probably doesn't.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, Martin.
Can I ask a follow-up question just on the who can nominate? At what point would it be like appropriate to nominate oneself?
Go
just
ahead.
Not to.
Go ahead. Absolutely, go ahead.
Because you know, when I wanted to be the maintainer of the IPA or reviewer of the IPA bits, I should have asked Honza. Honza hopefully asked you, and then nothing happened. And I was wondering, okay, so am I good enough, or was it got lost? Or
it probably just got lost, quite frankly.
So perhaps I was thinking maybe I should have just written you an email myself. So maybe people, if you think that you can be a maintainer, don't wait for someone to nominate you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll also say that I've been the unofficial secretary of the steering committee, and I know that a lot of people have told me, or at least been concerned, that it looked like I was dominating and that I was the puppet master. I've heard various rude things about my role here, but I am also the person that has been the most responsible for actually tracking nomination. So
and you have the wiki page now.
Absolutely.
And we have the wiki
and
page
the wiki
now.
pages
So-
will be public.
So people can be upset, but the reason that I was the person that received most of the requests and that announced various nominations, because I was the person that was actually tracking this through the steering committee and forcing people, okay, here's the vote, here's the time, what's the nomination, and okay, this is happening, as opposed to things falling through the cracks, unintentionally.
So on a related note, when new passes and new architectures come in, we should have a policy, period, that a maintainer is set up. And that means there is going to be a bottleneck of going through the steering committee. How does that bottleneck and everything get resolved if there is any controversy on those?
Well, we both have, officially the steering committee is supposed to accept large contributions. And so at some level, the fact that the steering committee agrees to accept the pass also makes us accountable for a maintainer for that pass.
But what I think Andrew is saying is, at that point, if there is conflict, how do we deal with that?
Well, but it's a matter of we need to accept both or neither. We basically go back and say, okay, if we don't feel confident in somebody being a maintainer, then we can't accept the pass.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did you reject Algol? Yeah, 68.
Yeah, and that and if we're not confident, that raises a whole other set of questions, and we'll deal with that.
All right, we're out of time, but it's pictures.
One more. Ask a question. So I want to give her a chance.
One last thing. It's not a question, it's a recommendation. So yesterday there was a really lovely talk about uncomplicating the contributions for newcomers. So I would highly recommend to rewatch this on YouTube for those who weren't there, because there were some lovely ideas that could inspire the communities. Thanks.
Thank you. I will.
Okay.
All right, I'm in the concept of holding people accountable. I took some notes here, and so I think there are several topics that were raised, but I think the most important topic is, because you guys are just a handful of people being on the steering committee, it seems like there's growth that's needed and more division of labor of the steering committee. So who can I contact? Who is the one person I can contact? Because I do not want to email the steering committee. And no offense, but I've in the past, when I've had, not directly, but another team member has raised it with the steering committee, there's been crickets, and this is a couple of years ago. So I don't know how it is now. So who in the steering committee can I reach out to follow up on these actions And one of the important ones is how to expand the steering committee's responsibilities, and there are several people seem to be interested in taking on new roles. And it obviously feels like there is a lot of consensus that it will help with their career progression as well.
May I make a recommendation?
Yes.
I think David, Jason, and I are in the office hours for the GNU Toolchain. Bring the topic to the office hours, like David, because that would let us turn over and discuss face-to-face in person. I think email, does not give us the time and the opportunity to be in front of each other and talk through issues. So I'd say, the office hours are a perfect place to come bring that discussion. And if you precede the agenda the month ahead, then I can, as a facilitator for the office hours, go hunt down the other GCCSC members, make sure Jeff gets his calendar invite, and shows up to the office hours, and then we can spend half an hour turning around that topic, and then we can drive an email chain, a public discussion, a public place, and everybody knows that Jeff's going to be there. And so maybe that office hour is bunk. Yeah,
So
maybe it's like 100
follow
people
up,
in the
is
office
the
hours.
Office hours on the GCC wiki, or where is it? Where can I find the office?
The office hours are on the GCC wiki, and the calendar invite goes to all 4 project mailing lists. Therefore, it lands in your calendar if you have those mailing lists coming into your email stream.
Well, and also I'll mention that Andrew has now set up the GNU Tools weekly, and we can provide communication to him to be able to announce these topics on his
weekly.
social media, and there's also the GNU Tools on X and
I have a quick question, probably out of time, but for the next meeting of this steering committees, I think it would be good if you give us a list of what you've done in the past year. Decisions that have been taken, if you can share them. If there is something, no, seriously, we have appointed X person to this maintainership. We have had some thorny issue, if you can discuss with company XYZ or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because it would be, even if you can share, obviously, if it's a political item that you don't want to share or it's not public, that's one thing. But if it's something like the day-to-day decisions that you make, it would be good to say, with this year we appointed 10 maintainers, or we hope, right? Something like that.
Love it.
Yeah.
And as Nick said to my ear, accountability.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a question, a request.
10:04. Yeah.
Not a question, a request. We've been talking about succession planning, apparently. When you do succession planning, please take diversity into account.
I'm doing it now.
When you do succession planning, please take diversity into account. I say you need it. It's needed.
There's only one outlier right now.
Yeah.
In this whole thing.
Okay.
That's fair.
Fair? Yeah. Absolutely.